Thank you all for being here. I love to see so many people here at this presentation. My name is Carrie Dillon. I'm the Managing Director of the International Textile Alliance, and we are the organization that produces Interwoven on behalf of our members. And again, we're thrilled to have all of you here today for our trend presentation looking at fall winter 26-27. I would like to introduce Kristen Mungian with Future Snoops. Kristen is the Director of Home and Lifestyle at Future Snoops, where she brings a decade of experience translating cultural signals into clear, compelling direction for the home industry. Known for her sharp visual intuition and deep market fluency, Kristen develops the trend narratives, seasoned reports, and product insights that help brands understand where consumers are headed and why. Her work sits at the intersection of culture and design, connecting macro shifts to real-world opportunities across materials, color, form, and lifestyle behaviors. Kristen partners with leading retailers and manufacturers across categories, advising on trend content, product development, and strategic planning to support innovation and growth. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, but actually real quick before I do, when the presentation is over, I invite all of you to join us outside for our party, which will extend one of the themes that Kristen is going to speak on. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you everyone for being here. Who's ready to talk about the key shifts that are impacting the home market and particularly the textile industry for fall/winter 26-27? Before I dive into the shifts, though, I really want to quickly walk you through who we are at Future Snoops and what we do. We are a futures agency with over 25 years of tracking cultural shifts and turning signals into commercial success. We serve brands, retailers, and manufacturers across 50+ countries to shape distinctive futures. With expert insight, proprietary AI tools, and bespoke advisory services, we help brands uncover possibilities, know why they matter, and carve a path as original as they dare to be. So let's get into it. And just to reiterate what Carrie said, my name's Kristen Mungian, and I'm the Director of Home and Lifestyle at Future Snoops. So before we dive into the shifts that are impacting the market, we start with an overarching sentiment that we're calling the Renaissance of Real. So what is the Renaissance of Real? As technology accelerates and AI continues to reshape our world, we're seeing a powerful countercurrent take shape. It's this renewed desire for the tactile, the handcrafted, and the deeply human. And people are craving these experiences that feel genuine. And with that being said, we're witnessing this rediscovery of analog pleasures, raw materials, and just the beauty of things that are made by hand and that feel very authentic. But this is not turning away from technology or innovation at all. It's really about rebalancing and using the digital world to enhance, not replace what's real. And at its heart, it's about reconnecting with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us. So when I talk about the Renaissance of Real, we're really talking about a shift in values. And after years of rapid technological growth and constant digital immersion and stimulation, people are craving what's honest, imperfect, and deeply sensory overall. And we're seeing it in the resurgence of slow hobbies like ceramic making, baking, gardening, sewing. We're seeing it in the return of physical media, so records, film, photography, printed books. And we're also seeing it in interiors that really celebrate who we truly are as humans and individuals. So each of our 4 thematics that we'll walk through today is filtered through this lens. And each one offers a different perspective on how we return to authenticity in a world that's increasingly virtual. So with the Renaissance of Real as our foundation, this season unfolds through 4 thematics each one exploring a different way we're connecting. And together they form this very well-rounded spectrum from the raw and elemental to the expressive and emotionally charged. So we'll start with preserve, and this is where traditionalism meets the untamed wilderness. It's a story of rebirth where classic forms are reinterpreted through a wild, organic lens. So think heritage elevated by nature's hand. The next we'll walk through is bare, and this one is all about material honesty and longevity. So we strip back excess to uncover the quiet beauty of raw materials and objects built to withstand the test of time. And then comes expressionism, which is what you'll see outside for our party later, but it's a deeply personal and playful chapter where design becomes a mirror of emotion. Color, form, texture, all are used intuitively and celebrate individuality. And then finally, we'll end with drench. So this one is one of the most emotionally charged and rich of the four. It's really where saturation, depth, and feeling take center stage. And it's very much about sensory immersion. So together, they capture the many ways we're discovering what's real, not as a single aesthetic, but as a movement towards meaning and connection and the human touch. So with that being said, let's kick it off with preserve. Consumers are really seeking spaces that ground them. They want interiors that feel soulful and storied and deeply rooted. And Preserve answers this desire by blending timeless craftsmanship with nature's raw beauty. So in a world where the boundaries between indoors and outdoors continues to blur, Preserve creates a sanctuary that's sophisticated yet wild. It's refined yet grounded. And we're really seeing this push towards neo-traditionalism, and it's merging with naturalism. So it marries heritage and craftsmanship with this deep connection to the natural world. And you could see that the color palette matches that sentiment perfectly and blends this rich spectrum of heritage-driven colors that are also very naturally driven at the same time. And going back to the Renaissance of Real for a second, just to connect the dots, in today's era of rapid tech acceleration, there's this longing for spaces that feel rooted in history, while still offering that flexibility that we need for modern day living. And at the same time, we're also seeing this growing awareness of our climate reality, and it's prompting a shift from passive consumption to active participation in sustainability efforts. So this isn't just about reducing impact, it's about contributing to a much larger balanced ecosystem and creating interiors that endure and resonate and support a healthier future for generations to come. So we'll play a quick video. So as you can see, very traditional, but with that injection of nature that we're all craving. So now that we've covered the foundation of what preserve is, let's dive a little bit deeper into the materials and surfaces that are impacting this specific shift. So just as lifestyles are shifting, so too are the materials that we're using. So the key word that is defining materials here is rawness. So instead of simply giving you call outs to consider for each, like I typically do at these presentations, I wanted to really highlight the bigger picture overall. And rawness celebrates unrefinement, imperfection, and authenticity when it comes to our materials and surfaces. So it's truly all about embracing materials in their natural state, making sure that they feel very honest and tactile and real. So this isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's shaping new sustainable processes, and it's valuing the origin of resources and the story that each material carries. So why are we designing this way? Because sustainability today demands more than just surface level choices. A fierce, raw approach to materials reimagines design by valuing waste, sourcing mindfully, and keeping impact as low as possible. It's really about letting materials remain true to their natural state overall. So how does this show up in our interiors? So home textiles take on earthbound integrity and unrefined beauty here. So we're looking at supple calf suede, smooth leathers, felts, boiled woolens, and antiqued metals, all of which bring this refined sense of authenticity. We're looking at eco-conscious materials, so responsibly sourced wools, regenerative cottons, things along those lines. Those are the materials that are taking center stage. And they're being paired with these deep marled textures just to add a little bit of warmth to our upholstery and finishings. Surfaces are very much tactile and alive. Think vegetable tanning, plant-based dyes, brushed or stone-washed finishes for these type of applications. And these materials echo preserves philosophy, marrying that heritage feel with nature and craftsmanship to create these sophisticated, soulful, very connected material options. So now that we covered materials and surfaces, let's take a look at the patterns and graphics that are influencing this shift. So for each of the shifts, I will be going through 4 of the top pattern and graphic callouts that we find relevant for each of them. So the first pattern callout is called pastoral rhythm. So these are your painterly florals, which are influenced by past artists and bygone errors, and they're met with these modern sensibilities. So the palette, which features this really beautiful enduring red, this pomegranate juice, this olive brine, and the pale heather colorations, adds a little bit of a contemporary twist while keeping that romantic, expressive feel overall. These are printed on jacquards or brushed Melton fabrics, and they are just really beautiful florals that carry a heritage sensibility. And the repeats here are a little bit more flowing and untamed than we would typically see, echoing that organic rhythm of nature that we're discussing. Next up, we have mineral drift. So these are very fluid stripes overall, and they bring a softer, more layered design language that ties directly to preserves connection to, again, that nature and that heritage. So think your undulating sands and mineral striations forming these sweeping arches. So these are your patterns that evoke the gentle, persistent movement of things like wind and other natural elements. So for upholstery, this is about texture and tactility. On sofas, chairs, and cushions, mineral drift becomes more than just a pattern direction. It's a sensory experience. It brings the grounding organic rhythm into the heart of the home. And next up, we have what we're calling wild refinement. So here, textures merge seamlessly with elements from the natural world, capturing its inherent vulnerability while bringing an elevated, almost glamorous sensibility to this aesthetic. So think animal prints and the organic flow of wood grain here. These raw, unfinished designs that feel very effortless, but still very much refined in a sense. So for upholstery, these patterns translate beautifully onto tactile fabrics and surfaces. So denser focal points and deeper pigments are really what's going to give this print a winter-ready depth. And then finally, we have Scenic Reverie. So this one is inspired by serene landscapes and lush foliage. And the designs here offer a fresh take on your more natural scenic prints. So they capture leaves, trees, organic forms in compositions that feel both grounded and a little bit dreamlike in a sense. And that really ties back to those heritage elements. So some patterns feel very classically painted, others more abstract. There's a lot of wiggle room here, and they all push the boundary of traditional nature-inspired design. So these work beautifully on not only soft furnishings, but drapery and wall coverings as well. They play with subtle gradients, deep tones, soft contrasts, all of which have this quiet complexity to them. And that concludes Preserve. Now we'll move on to our second shift, Bear. I'm sure you could guess what this one is all about. So at its core, Bear is about honesty. It strips away the noise and the idea that we constantly need something new or on trend, and instead it returns us to what simply feels right. It's this reaction to a world that's taught us to chase novelty, and it reminds us that authenticity and longevity are far more fulfilling than chasing the trends constantly. So in this shift, we design and live with purpose. Spaces are calm and intentional, where light, space, and materiality speak louder than ornamentation. And the beauty comes from balance, these soft, organic textures, muted, natural tones, and gentle forms that feel very restorative and real. So ultimately, Bear helps us to reconnect to our homes, to our surroundings, and to ourselves as well. It's about creating spaces that breathe, that ground us, and honor the quiet power that simplicity has. So let's play a quick video. So as you can see, it's very much a breath of fresh air. So let's take a look at materials and surfaces here. Really, longevity sits at the heart of Bear, especially when it comes to the materials and surfaces. In a world that moves fast and favors the new, this shift slows things down a lot. And instead, it favors endurance over excess. So it's about designing materials that stand the test of time, both in function as well as feeling. So mindful multifunction defines this approach where practicality and innovation work together to create pieces that are very versatile, lasting, and built with care. And longevity isn't just about durability. It's about designing for a future where quality, adaptability, and emotional connection matter more than constant change. So again, I ask, why are we designing this way? Because today, materials need to do more than just look good. They need to perform, adapt, and last. Brands are rethinking functionality, embracing multifunctional solutions that work for all people and all spaces, while also being mindful of the planet and their impact. Consumers also don't have the same spending power as they once did, so they're holding on to their pieces a lot longer and keeping that sentiment in mind when they're buying their new purchases. So again, how does this show up in interiors? This materials story turns utility into a quiet statement of quality. So soft goods use resilient elastane blends, recycled felts and woolens, fine leathers, and low impact protective finishes. all of which are designed for flexibility and comfort, as well as durability. We're also looking at bio-based leathers, which reduce environmental impact, while hard goods like engineered plastics and stainless steel are crafted for easy disassembly, refurbishment, or closed loop recycling. The finishes here focus on tactile comfort and practicality. So frosted surfaces that diffuse light, matte handles which enhance grip, and subtle textures which add depth without distraction. And together, these elements create interiors that balance work-ready functionality with enduring elegance. Moving on to our patterns and graphics, they also carry that same sentiment of longevity. So these are your staple prints that are reimagined and reworked to feel new, but also very lasting. Our first one is called Lasting Impression. So here, a new form of trompe l'oeil unfolds, where textural prints gently evoke these soft, fluid movements. And the inspiration comes from nature's finest details here. So we're looking at the subtle indentations of a petal, or the curves on skin, or the flowing drape of a fabric, all of which are creating patterns that feel very tactile and alive. These painterly brushstrokes and more effects add depth, giving the textures a sense of history and softness. So the prints here, they feel a little bit worn, but in the most delicate way possible. And Lasting Impression really captures Bear's overall spirit. It's quiet, it's understated, and it brings a sense of calm to our interiors. So this one really works beautifully on your soft textured fabrics. Think your jacquards, your brushed meltons, your chenilles, and even some of your velvets. And the trompe l'oeil effect and subtle brushstroke textures come to life in fabrics that have a little bit more depth and hand, giving it this worn but refined character. Next, we have whispered checks. So this one gives our traditional checks and plaids a gentle flowing feel with this soft organic sensibility. And these are subtle textures here. So you're embossed, you're lightly worn, you're delicately detailed. These details are what's going to add depth and character to these prints and these fabrications. As well as the low contrast palette that we're seeing here. This really helps keep everything understated. It's soft minimalism with warmth and emotional resonance. So this one translates well into your plain weaves, your twills, your dobby constructions. It can also have a little bit of a distressed feel or subtly textured fabric. Again, making your upholstery pieces feel very tactile and personal. Next up, we're going to move on to Earthen Flow. So these designs are your soft, fluid, tender gradients. And they're these translucent washes that move effortlessly across the surface. They kind of have a barely there quality to them, in my opinion. And they're inspired by the striations that we see in stone, and they capture the natural flowing patterns that feel very ethereal and, again, very grounded. So this one is very much airy and soothing, and it kind of acts as a visual palette cleanser and brings that clarity and harmony to a space. So textured surfaces like chenilles, velvets, soft jacquards really help to enhance that ethereal quality, while your lightly printed or stone washed finishes emphasize a little bit more movement without overpowering the fabric itself. And the final call out we have here is called whimsical curve. So these are very much rooted in organic, natural inspiration, and they celebrate intentional imperfection. So these are your warped stripes and your softly distorted curves. that kind of overlap and shift a little bit. So they create this gentle sense of movement and depth, but again, they're not overwhelming at all. And they kind of have a playful sensibility to them too, which adds a little bit more fun to this very simple bear story, which is a little bit unexpected and nice. Adds a little bit of character. So these translate beautifully on plain weaves, twills, and dobby constructions as well. All right, we're moving on to our third shift of the day, which is called Expressionism, and it is quite the departure from where we were with Bear. So let's get into it. So this shift is about homes that are living, imaginative canvases. So these are spaces that surprise and delight and tell the story of the people who live in these homes. So it's playful, it's bold, it's full of personality, and it's where every object has meaning and joy truly drives the design philosophy. So this one celebrates your individuality and a little bit of curiosity as well. And here we're breaking all the rules. We're experimenting with forms, we're layering different design eras and textures and colors in very unexpected ways, but it works because it's a reflection of who we are. So in a world that often feels very fast and fragmented, people are seeking these spaces that feel truly theirs. So there's this sense of play that is really reshaping how we interact with our homes and with each other. So our homes are becoming these places for shared experiences and gatherings, and they're becoming a lot more communal in our layouts and just how we utilize them overall. So this story is really about creating opportunities for those authentic moments of connection within the home. And again, like I said, consumers really want their products to reflect their uniqueness. And it really empowers both brands and consumers alike to embrace difference, reclaim imagination, and explore designs in ways that are a little bit daring and entirely personal. And as you can see, the color palette here is very bright and full of personality, and it encourages, again, these unexpected mixes. So this store is all about pairing hues that you wouldn't normally see together or utilize together, and it's just a lot of fun. So think vibrant primaries alongside softer pastels, saturated tones offset by these muted neutrals, and pops of color that feel very spontaneous yet deliberate. So let's get into our video. I mean, how fun is that? What I love most about this particular shift is just how different it looks in each space because of just how authentic and individual it is. So we'll move on to our materials and surfaces. So vitality lives at the core of expressionism. So this one is all about experimentation and pushing the boundaries of conventional design. So what we see here is playful, it's alive, and it encourages us to craft outside the lines to unlock the unexpected. So why are we designing this way? Breaking boundaries in craft across materials and surfaces sparks this vivid journey of discovery. So suppliers and designers and consumers are stepping beyond the ordinary, and they're experimenting with new constructions, detailing, and material usage, all in search of very fresh, creative frontiers. So when we look at how this is showing up in interiors, we're seeing that we're blending long-standing craft practices with a modern artistic vision. So new collections of soft and hard goods are coming alive with character because of this. Iconic materials such as brushed mohair, colored leathers, and jacquards are being reimagined with this sentiment in mind. And they're really being utilized to showcase vibrant tactile expressions. So they're featuring things like novelty stitches, textured yarn slubs, playful combinations of textures and weights. Color play, like I said earlier, plays a huge role in this, with your saturated tones and your unexpected pairings bringing that energy and personality. We're also seeing finishes like high sheen accents and polished surfaces come through. And together, these elements create interiors that feel very youthful, very dynamic, and unapologetic overall. And it's very much in line with Expressionism's spirit. So let's get into our patterns and graphics here. The first pattern call out is boundless craft. So that goes back to what I was just saying with craft as our inspiration here. This direction is very messy, very sporadic, and very art inspired. So it draws from embroidery, tufting, collaging, and more craft practices. And it's really a space for us to repurpose things like offcuts or materials from previous seasons in new and fun ways. And like I said, there's no rules here. That makes it all the more better. So your color, material, your dimension, and textile are all fair game. The designs feel as though they're in this constant state of evolution when it's done so this way. So it encourages that addition of more color, more texture, and more personality over time once you start layering it a little bit more. And the next one is Pattern Frenzy, which very much builds upon the spirit of boundless craft. So here we see that craft and bohemia come together to create this joyful clash of patterns. So these designs are like a patchwork of memories, if you will. They draw from archives, previous seasons, with no fixed rules, whatever at all. In fact, we're rebelling against expectations entirely here. So this is what I would say maximalism at its best. Unexpected shapes, layered accent pieces, and just the playful chaos of clashing prints. It's not just about a single pattern here at all. It's really about using print as a tool for creativity and storytelling. And this could be applied to a very diverse mix of upholstery fabrics, from your woven jacquards, your chenilles, your brushed velvets, your soft felts. The more texture and materiality, the better, to help really create this layered, stitched together feel. Next up is dynamic flow. So this one reinvents the classic stripe, because a stripe would not be very classic in this story at all. We have to give it a little bit more of a playful feel. So this one has that free-flowing energy for expressionism, and the stripes feel very unrestricted, and they move effortlessly across the surface. And we're utilizing things like these clever color transitions to really help enhance the dimension as well as the vibrancy here. So we're also incorporating wavy repeats, painterly lines, and even some of these optical illusions, that all of which reflect that broader narrative of the bold, exaggerated silhouettes. If you want to tone it down a little bit, you can by utilizing some of these softer colorways. But the vibrant combinations truly do make the statement here. And then finally, we have glitched geometry. So like we had our fresh take on the stripe, we also have a fresh take on your classic checks, your plaids. These are your familiar timeless patterns that are reinvented and given an unexpected twist. So these are some heritage-driven designs that become a little bit pixelated or glitchy, kind of merging some of your digital aesthetics into this realm, but it still has a very artisanal, handmade craft quality to it. We're looking at dithered effects, layered prints, and bold acidic colors to create this sense of playful chaos and a little bit of abstraction here. And here's really where we can explore this tension that we're seeing between tradition and technology. We're looking at overprinting and layered compositions, both of which give the piece a dynamic quality. So this one really is all about controlled unpredictability. They're your familiar patterns that are energized and a little bit more inventive than we're used to here. So with that, we'll move on to our final shift of the day, and then we could get into the party. This one is drench. So this one is luxury. And if luxury in general feels very different now, it's immersive, it's tactile, and it's emotionally charged. So drench turns the idea of color and material saturation into a total experience. So rooms are washed in chromatic intensity where your velvet, your marble, your lacquered finishes create this sensory rush. And we're really looking to touch and color and materiality now to define modern luxury. Modern luxury is not what it used to be by any means. And overall, interiors are no longer meant to just be observed from a distance. They're designed to be felt. So color moves beyond decoration to become this mood tool, shaping how spaces make us feel. So we're seeing a lot of rich, saturated hues, unexpected pairings, and just these really beautiful colorations come through here. So it's not about prestige or labels, it's about presence and feeling. This one as well is very personal, it's very expressive. It echoes that sentiment of being deeply human. And a sense of refinement does still remain here, but it's refused with a sense of self that feels anything but generic. So let's take a look at our video. All right, let's take a look at the materials and surfaces. So the key word here is rebellious. So this word really sets the tone here because drenching in itself is an act of defiance. So it rejects the safe, the restrained, and the expected in favor of saturation and emotion and sensory impact. Naturally, the materials and surfaces that accompany this aesthetic follow suit. So they're embracing darker, moodier, and more unconventional tendencies. So we're seeing these moody and rebellious compositions really redefine novelty through tension. So dark, brooding finishes are paired with sleek, high-polished contrasts. Plush textures sit beside structured architectural surfaces, and classic materials such as your marble and your glass and your metal are pushed into these unfamiliar territories through these very experiential treatments. So these surfaces aren't meant to blend in at all. They're really meant to disrupt quietly and to create a sense of depth and drama. And they all have this cinematic quality to them. So again, why are we designing this way? Bold contrasts are really reawakening fibers, constructions, and finishes, pushing novelty assortments into more expressive, emotionally charged territory. And these highlighted variations reveal the full potential of materials. And they really invite us to experience depth and drama and the unexpected. And as consumers seek sensory richness over predictability, these contrasts become a pathway to more intimate and memorable design experiences across every sector. So when we look at how we're applying this to our textiles and our home furnishings, we're seeing this dynamic interplay of textures ranging from soft, pliable fabrics to sharp glass-like finishes bring new dimension and emotional intensity into our home textiles. Luxurious materials like pan velvets and unaligned leathers enrich upholstery and decorative accents with their very immersive tactility. And elevated treatments such as embossing or reactive washes and high sheen coatings also help to enhance that visual intrigue overall. So completing this story, we're also looking at these raw, hand-forged, or intentionally tarnished metals, which they're these really beautiful details that deliver this counterpoint of gritty sophistication to a furniture piece. And they really help to ground the palette with this mysterious industrial elegance overall. And all of these, when they're put together, they create this very cohesive, sensory forward expression of luxury. So moving on to our last segment, patterns and graphics. So we really like to reinvent your basics. So your plaid gets a rebellious makeover this season once again, which we're calling this disrupted basic. And the plaid in this sensibility moves away from the refined, the symmetrical, and really embraces this expressive artistic detail. So blurred effects help to soften the grid and distort its classic formation, while these hand-painted lines really break the symmetry. Each piece here feels very unique and interesting. We're also utilizing textures like flocking, which add a little bit more depth and introduce opportunities for more unexpected design elements to come through. So the result is a plaid that feels very tactile. It feels alive. It's really this perfect reflection of Drench's unconventional, rebellious spirit overall. Here we get into the red rose, which could be an icon print or it could be an all-over pattern. But the red rose is certainly taking center stage going forward for this season. It's very iconic and timeless, and it has a lot of symbolism to it, which makes it a really interesting design element that's both familiar and emotionally resonant for a lot of people. So these florals are imperfect, they're hand painted. You can even see them in quilted variations. So there's a lot of room to play in this realm. Traditionally, we're seeing them on textured jacquards or brocades, but we're expanding their reach this season. And we're inviting a lot more play with the material choices. So even bringing them into your lighter weight textiles would really enhance this fresh feeling that they're bringing to the forefront. And here we have what we're calling obsidian. So obsidian is where wildness meets structure. So it's kind of this fusion of animal prints and camouflage and even some textural dyes. It's very untamed, but it still has this deliberate quality to it. And once again, it's this pattern of contrast. I think we're seeing a lot of that going forward. And this is just another way to play with that. But this one really embodies duality. So it's impulsive, yet it's very enduring. It has that raw quality to it, but it does have a sense of refinement depending on how it's utilized. And this one really draws from fiery volcanic elements. And again, that animal print, the camouflage, it just has that very nature-driven quality to it in a really elevated way. So we're seeing speckling, terrazzo effects, metallic accents. That's a big one here. You could even incorporate appliques or embroidery to really add an additional layer of depth and texture here. But this one definitely reinforces that rebellious energy that we're seeing throughout Drench. And last but not least, we're seeing dynamic flow yet again. So we saw this in the previous shift, and it was done purposefully because some prints are versatile enough to travel across shifts, and dynamic flow is one of those. And it really encourages us to adjust scale or material or color. And when we do so, a pattern can completely transform to fit an entirely different context. So here it finds its place in Drench. And it definitely looks a lot different than it did in the previous story. In Expressionism, the lines were a lot looser, they were more free-flowing, a little bit more playful. And here they become more deliberate, they become a lot tighter and more structured, taking on this refined sense of intensity here. So the material also has a lot to do with how a print is translated. So we're looking at your luxurious heavyweight textiles to really enhance that very rich tactile and immersive quality of the print overall. So this is just a great example of how a single print can evolve and really adapt to the different mood of the shift, but still retains its core energy overall. And that concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, stay curious